What is pussy poppin', you beautiful humans? My name is Ariane Andrew.
I'm Matt Dillon, and welcome to another piping hot episode of Sippin' the Tea. Where we want, Ari?
Where we sip the tea and our guests
Spill
that
tea.
tea.
I did not leave you hanging, and I made sure I didn't.
Yes, because we were going to have a problem if you did, okay?
Listen, it's a special episode because everybody's here today. We got Miss Mama.
We have little Glitty.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have Dr. Evan Antin. Now, if you look at a resume, you have like slashy. So not only is he the world's sexiest vet, according to every article you ever read, he is an author of this amazing book. He's a TV personality, but he is on a mission, I think, the way I would surmise it, to be a voice for those that can't speak and kind of educate along the way with us. And we have his little sidekick with us, Dr. Evan. Thank you for joining us, man.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me. I've been looking forward to this. And so is Henry here.
What's up, Henry?
Hey, Henry. Look at Henry serving looks with his little tie.
Hello.
Okay, well, we're going to just dive right on in. We are now in a new year, but 2020 definitely took, I think, everybody by storm. It was very interesting, to say the very least, but we would like to focus on the positives. So looking back at 2020, what were some positive takeaways that you had with your career as well as personally?
With my career, I would say it was another year I got to gain some more perspective and think about what I do relative to the rest of the world. And I mean, I still got to take some really incredible special trips, not as many as the years before, but I did get to go to Australia and help out the animals that were affected by wildfires in Kangaroo Island in southern Australia. I got to go to Tanzania in October when pretty much nobody was there. And I saw the most infamous or the famous, the biggest part of the Great Migration, which is when all the wildebeests are crossing the Mara River. And it's just one of nature's greatest spectacles. And there was hardly any tourists there, which isn't great for the country, but that was really cool. And so professionally, yeah, I mean, just getting to do those things when, not everybody had that good, that kind of good fortune and whatnot. I felt very, very lucky. It was just a reminder of how lucky I am and how much I love what I do professionally. Personally, I took on a new hobby this year and I just dove in head first. I absolutely love it. And that's woodworking. And I'm just such a huge fan. Like, I got some new power tools and I've been just growing my shop and getting pretty much obsessed with it. I'm a big fan.
That's awesome. All these new hobby situations that people took up. I like that.
Yeah. Anything special you want to share with us? Any DIYs?
Yeah,
I just my first furniture project that I just finished, like a lot of the stuff I was doing in the shop was for the shop, so it could be functional, so I could do what I want to do. And I just finally finished my first real furniture project a couple months ago, and they're these mid-century Z chairs. I can show you guys them if you'd like to see them.
Oh yes, bring it on. Yeah. Yes,
bring it on. This is live. Here we go.
I love them. I'm very proud of them because I've never built any kind of furniture. I didn't think I'd be building chairs. And so we're just taking a walk in the living room here.
Welcome to Sippin' the Tea, where anything can happen.
Anything can happen. Ooh.
Yeah, here they are.
Wow,
man.
Yeah.
That looks great.
Yeah, I'm very, very stoked.
That's a real hobby. You actually really did take on a hobby. That's something real different.
Exactly.
It is. It's a lot of fun. I super love it. It took me more time than I would want to admit, but it was very rewarding. It's a fun hobby. It's super rewarding. It's kind of meditative for me. Honestly, it's time where I can just spend in the shop focusing on the wood, on the project, and just let my head clear and just, it's meditative in a way. It's weird. I don't know. I don't like full on meditate, so I can't say for sure, but to me, it feels like I just can kind of rejuvenate and refresh.
Your interpretation.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. So I want to go back to the boy from Kansas. Like everything I've read basically says that from the moment you could decide this is what I want to be, when people have that thought process, that being a vet was something that was from the go-get. Can you take us back to like that earliest memory and what it was about that profession, what it holds near and dear to your heart that like kicked off your exceptional adventures?
Absolutely. I mean, So to be honest, I always knew animals would be a big part of my life, whether it was personally or professionally. And if you look back in my history, it's pretty clear that, you know, nobody's going to be surprised about what I'm doing professionally today.
Yeah.
However, I didn't know I wanted to be a vet until I was in college. I
Oh,
started
yeah.
as a business major, and I always appreciated the sciences and animals and wildlife. And I mean, I loved that just on a personal level, just getting out. And I'd go snake hunting as a kid, and you know, my earliest memories are flipping rocks with the creek in my backyard, looking for turtles and snakes and insects and stuff like that, and frogs. And yeah, it wasn't until college I started as a business major, and I took some early bio courses. I took Gen Bio 1 and evolutionary biology, and fell in love. I actually loved to learn, and I wasn't a big fan of learning like in school before. I didn't want to be in school like in high school and before that. I just wanted to party and play sports and be with my friends like most other kids. And I just loved it. And I, you know, for a split second, I thought maybe I'd want to do human medicine, but I realized, you know what, man, I love animals so much. This is the way I can, you know, I love pets. I love the human animal bond. And that's something we get with our domesticated animals, our pets, our dogs, and all three of us have. And then I love wildlife, and I'd love to be able to give back to the wildlife that I've been able to appreciate over the years, and try to help, you know, conserve them as well, on a bigger scale. But it really, yeah, it wasn't until I was like 18 years old that I really knew this was my calling, and I pursued that and didn't look back and haven't looked back since. And I do have other passions and interests, but as far as something I want to put my name on as being a professional in, you know, I can't see myself doing anything else.
Well, you've definitely put that on the map for a lot of people, and opened a lot of eyes in a way that a lot of people can't do through books, audio, TV. So I think the message is definitely coming through for sure, man. So kudos. I think it's bomb.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that a lot.
Yeah, well, just kind of talking about what you just said, Matt, with like books and all that, everything that you kind of have your hands in. So tell our audience your book that you have, World Wild Vet. How did that journey come along? And, you know, what was that point for you where you're like, you know what, I have to write about this. This has to be out for the world to read about.
Absolutely, yeah. So World Wild Vet, I'm very proud and excited about it.
There,
You know, the
right
truth is,
here.
there it is. There we are.
There,
The big old water monitor. That lizard's such a sweetheart.
there.
The idea of writing a book is something that occurred to me years before I pursued this, but it's something I thought I'd be doing much later in my career. I thought I would want to have a lot more experience and be a well-seasoned, you know, veterinarian and wildlife activist, conservationist. But honestly, I realized at that point when I started writing that, you know what, I've got a lot of stories. I've worked with wildlife in 6 out of 7 continents. I know what conservation is like in Southeast Asia and in Central America and in Africa and Australia. And you know, I've worked with a lot of my favorite wildlife animals in their native habitats around the world. And I've learned a lot about, you know, just how we as people can interact with them and work towards their conservation. I felt like I had a lot of lessons I wanted to share, and really fun and crazy and funny and scary and just wild experiences and travels that I've, you know, acquired up to that point. So I felt ready sooner than I thought I would initially, if that makes sense.
I mean, that does make sense because your journey, but in college you went to Tanzania and were part of a tribe, like definitely makes sense. I mean, you started young, man.
Yeah, I mean, I had like 15 years of experience.
Wow.
When I started writing, I had been a veterinarian for 5 years. It took me a little over 2 years to write the book in total. And, you know, so this year I'll be a vet for 8 years. It's not a super green vet, but it's not a super seasoned veterinarian. But I've been very lucky, and I've worked very hard, and I've been able to do a lot since I started traveling, you know, 15, 16 years ago.
Wow.
I love that. I think you sharing your journeys, and they're always so picturesque, but they're real. Is there one that kind of changed your life in terms of like a moment? There's probably 50,000 moments that you're like bang, bang, bang. But is there just something that you think about from your travels frequently and be like, wow, I can't believe I got to see, be, and feel a part of something like that?
Right. I mean, every trip, I'm lucky to say, has some kind of moment like that. But I'll tell you one of my absolute favorites, and one that just I think made me a better rounded human being on the planet. not just as an American in a, a progressive country or whatever you want to call it, a first world country. But when I went to Tanzania the first time in 2007 as a student, haven't traveled much by that time. I didn't know what it was like to be in developing countries. And oh my goodness, I mean, it opened my eyes. Like I say this a lot, but I really mean it. I mean, every day I think about how fortunate I am to have something as simple as running water that is drinkable and temperature controlled on tap from multiple faucets in my home. Like what a luxury, let alone, our phones and our cars and all of our first world things. But like, I mean, we're so lucky to have that. And we're so different than these other places in some ways. But at the same time, at the end of the day, even though we live such vastly different lives than other people in other parts of the world, we have so much in common with them. And they're so relatable. And a lot of these people that have the simplest of lives, I mean, every day is just get what you need for today. They're not thinking about their investments or their future. They're not as worried about their past. They're just getting their needs for that day. And they really live in the moment. And at the end of the day, they just want to be happy and they want their family to be healthy and happy, just like pretty much everyone.
Wow.
That's a beautiful and impactful takeaway, Ariane.
It really is, just because, I mean, even with what you're saying, and I think we take a lot of stuff for granted when we think about, oh, what we need, what I have to have, this car, this house. And I love that you hit on that about like how they in different countries can just be in the present moment and living for that time, because it's the truth. We're always thinking so much about the past, we're thinking about the future and X, Y, and Z instead of just living in the present moment. And I have a question for you, particularly because for someone who is handsome, is a doctor, has explored so many different countries, like someone looks at you and is like, wow, like this person's perfect and this person doesn't go through, things. What would you tell your younger self?
That's a good one.
Like if I was to give myself advice or something?
Yeah, like looking, because I mean, like people like look at you and be like, wow, he has everything. But I know there has to be a moment when if you look back at your younger self saying, if I could give myself this advice, I'm sure there's, the audience that's listening to be like, wow, I could take that as well.
Right. I get that question, a fair bit. And part of me thinks like, I'm so happy where I am now. And I like think about things like, the butterfly effect, where you change one little thing, it can just dramatically change everything. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't want to be doing anything other than what I'm doing now. So part of me is like, don't touch him, just let him do what he's going to do. And things worked out. He put the work in, you got good opportunities. Yeah. So that maybe sounds, I don't know. I don't hope that doesn't sound bad. I hope that makes sense. But if I was going to go back, I mean, I think just stay humble. Keep being proactive, putting yourself out there. I mean, for me, I think that's been what's gotten me my more success, in my career than anything, is just being proactive, putting myself out there, reaching out. The animal world's a small world. The veterinary world's a smaller world. The wildlife and zoo world is an even smaller world. And the more you engage with people, the more connections you can establish, the more doors open and opportunities come your way. And so just staying really on top of that, I think, is one of the most valuable things I would want to reinforce to my young self. And it's something I tell, young students all the time. I was just on a Zoom with a zoo club, student club for Colorado State University, which was my alma mater for vet school. And I mean, I was kind of trying to reinforce some of those same things. I think there's a lot of value to that, and you can change your entire future by just being, I don't want to say aggressive, but just, really putting that time and work in towards making opportunities come your way. I mean, some people like, you guys have heard of The Secret, where if you think about something and like, I think there's some reality to that, to some degree, but it's something that at least in the documentary, for example, it seemed neglected, was putting in the work and the time. And so I love the idea of having a vision and thinking about whatever it is that you want or you see yourself as or whatever, but putting that work in, executing steps to make that happen. That's where things really come alive. And I mean, I'm lucky just that I had a vision to begin with. A lot of people don't even know what they want to do. And I'm so fortunate that I had a strong idea of that at a relatively young age.
That's so true, because most people are still trying to figure out their passion. Most people are just doing what they feel like needs to be done to take care of the bills. So, I mean, that's super important. That's actually great that you had that at such a young age, because people are still, 30s, 40s, still trying to figure it out. But I love how you not only touched about what you would tell your younger self, but just giving key, I feel like, advice just in life in general, for people out there who are like, wow, like, how do I get to that level? So thank you for sharing that.
My pleasure. Thanks for asking.
I think that's really, really dope. I think that's going to connect with a lot of people because mistakes and all. I definitely wouldn't press the rewind button and change anything. I think it all builds a jigsaw puzzle that is beautiful, filled with flaws and imperfections. Right. I want to talk about wildlife with you, and I want to get your opinion on some things because I feel like you've been on the ground level at where most people can get access to. You've been, Tanzania, Africa, so you've been there at the front lines. What is your opinion on, I guess, because a lot of people have very strong opinions about zoos, foundations, sanctuaries, if you call them. A lot of people have very strong opinions. I have opinions, and I'm in Florida, so there's a lot of these places around me.
Yeah.
Some of them I'm very close to, and they're doing amazing work, bringing animals from Africa that are being hunted for canning and so many different things. But I want to get your take on it, just a clean take and opinion, because I think that to me is really important for people to understand, when they go to certain places that they potentially are supporting profit margin things rather than helping animals at all.
Right. Okay, so I would categorize zoos different than a wildlife rescue, and there's different kinds of both. But if we're talking about zoos, which I think to start with at least, there's a lot of controversy that people find and feel when it comes to zoos. The word zoo and what a zoo means to me is a very broad range of things, because just about any little business or whatever can call themselves a zoo if they charge people to come in and see animals they have. Now, when I'm talking about good zoos, which I think are unquestionably extremely valuable towards wildlife conservation, it's not even an opinion, it's a matter of fact, and I can explain why. A good zoo is doing major things to give back towards conservation. Good zoos fund conservation, they fund conservation research. Zoo researchers and biologists actually get out in the field. I've worked with people that are full-time zoo veterinarians, but we're doing conservation work with giraffes in Uganda, for example. They do that kind of work. And when we do that, we learn more about our wildlife. And when we learn more about our animals in captivity and our wildlife, we can help both ends of them. Okay, just from a health standpoint, from the veterinary standpoint, from the conservation standpoint as well. We need to do our research and promote our wildlife conservation and learn more about the natural habitats and more about the natural histories and just the ecology of these animals. And we can benefit both our wild counterparts and our captive counterparts. Zoos do a ton to reach out to children. I'm one of the lucky few where I've seen different species of gorilla multiple times in the wild, and had moments with them and made eye contact with them and in their native habitat. That's something that most people don't get the good fortune to do. And if they want to do something like this,
I got chills. Sorry to interrupt. I got the chills because that's the dream. I want to be. Yeah.
It's very special, and I would love to do it regularly for the rest of my life. It's not a one and done thing; it's a special thing. But anyways, and that goes for a lot. That's not just gorillas; that's big cats. That's lots of other primates. That's sharks. That's whatever. And zoos provide a place where a child can look at a gorilla in the eyes. And a good zoo provides a good habitat and all the other things that are important for this animal, and that's a place for them to connect. So they have a lot of educational programs in that regard, and where most people can't do this kind of thing. And zoos, there's a lot of species that are completely extinct in the wild, but only exist because in captivity, we're keeping in touch with their genetic lines. We're keeping them, the species alive essentially. Good zoo is what a lot of people ask, and I think one of the most simple, straightforward places to start is that they have what's called an Aza Accreditation. And so that's the Association of Zoo and Aquariums accredited body. And so that is basically an organization that keeps heavy checks and balances on zoos, and they're making sure their animals and their habitats are good. They're encouraging them to contribute towards genetics, conservation, everything. And all the big name zoos are doing that. I mean, the LA Zoo is a great zoo. The San Diego Zoo is a world-renowned zoo. The Henry Dorley Zoo is one of my favorite zoos in the world in Nebraska. I mean, there's so many good zoos. I grew up in Kansas City. The Kansas City Zoo is a good zoo. And some are better than others, but there are a lot of good zoos. Now, another thing you have to keep in mind, and this is a reality here, and so I'm not going to just sugarcoat everything, is that some animals in captivity, it would be nice to see them in the wild. And it seems like for polar bears, for example, the reality is, as far as I know, most, if not all, polar bears are on Prozac or fluoxetine, which is a behavioral medication, an antidepressant, essentially, because it's tough for them to be in captivity. And so those individuals in our zoos, they're ambassadors of their species, and they're taking one for the team. And we have to be especially grateful for animals like that, because they're in a situation that they might be a little bit stressed out in. Some more than others. And there's some species that really, it's very tough to pull off having captivity, maybe should never be in captivity. But for the others, that if there is any struggle, we have to respect the fact that they're ambassadors of their species. It's because of those individuals, children, adults alike, can connect with them. And hopefully one day, if even a small percentage wants to give back towards conserving them and their habitats, that's important. When you have too much focus on animal welfare, and you say no hunting, no zoos, every animal, we want to, do what we can for them, you start losing sight of big picture. And if we only focus on animal welfare, which, listen, I am all about animal welfare. And if you're going to have animals in captivity, you better damn well do your best to make them happy and keep them comfortable and do the best for them. But at the same time, we have to have this big picture in mind. We have to think about our conservation as a whole. We have to think about the ecology of all the species, the habitats, and big picture. If we want to conserve them long term, if we only focus on animal welfare, we're going to lose big picture. We're going to lose. And so that's I think if you want to put it in the simplest terms, that's why there's controversy towards zoos, is because people want every individual animal to be happy, be wild, be free, and not thinking about the impacts of getting rid of zoos or things like hunting or some of these other controversial things, what it does for our conservation. Hunting is extremely controversial in this country.
Yeah.
And that's a whole other tangent we can get into if you guys want to chat a little bit about. But I mean, these are the kind of things that I'm more big picture. And I want as many animals as possible to be happy and healthy. I want that. But if we're not thinking big picture, everyone loses. All the species of the habitat are affected. We're going to see more extinctions. We're going to see more issues. We're going to lose faster if we don't think about big picture. And so good zoos, yeah, they're a business. I mean, listen, we live in a capitalist country. They are trying to make money too. I'm not going to lie to you and say they're not. I'm not, personally affiliated or working with any specific zoo, but yeah, they are. But at the end of the day, they're also doing a lot of good things that are legitimately hugely important towards the conservation of our wildlife around the world.
Ooh.
I think there's one thing that I took from that, what you just said, was the big picture thing, but it also is, when I look at wild captivity, when I look at the whole bubble, that if the education of somebody being up close to something, and then they down the line become somehow involved in some shape or form and give back, that to me is the evolution of how this will continue. Because I think
one of the goals, right?
Yeah, I love that. I think that was perfectly said.
Yeah, and something else I just always like to mention when it comes to zoos, there are a lot of wildlife and exotics, and I don't recommend as pets, but still can do very well and thrive in captivity. And I also want to remind people that being, saying zoos are bad, every animal should be free and in the wild, nature is a bitch. Nature is a frightening place to be. Every day is find food or be eaten. Every day is fight to survive. You are immersed in tropical diseases, dangers, threats, predators, the elements and weather and everything. And it's not easy to be a wild animal. I'm not saying we need to get all the wild animals out of the wild and protect them. We need to be realistic, and we want to conserve these habitats. I want to conserve our natural world. I mean, that's at the end of the day, that's something I'm so passionate about, is simply our earth, our natural world, what it was and what it's meant to be, and not impede on that more than we have to. But yeah, nature is not easy, and it's not butterflies and rainbows like a lot of people paint it to be. And if you get out in nature and you can see the kind of things that happen, and you don't have to get out that far to see how nasty and scary and dangerous and life-threatening it can be every single day, that's something you need to keep in mind. And we can offer an animal or a group of a little family of animals, whatever, a great habitat, great enrichment, a quality diet, safety protection, and quality veterinary care, like that's not a bad deal. And so and like I said, a lot of animals, they do great in captivity. Like I want to see their counterparts in the wild. Just because we have them in captivity, I still want them to, that as a species to be in the wild. But
Right.
it's not like every animal in a zoo is just like miserable. I would say more often than not, they're pretty happy and their life's pretty good.
I mean, it just goes back to what you said, and I feel like that's kind of like what you can use for life, like see the big picture. I feel like sometimes people get so stuck in a bubble with saying like, oh, this is only one way. And even then, like necessarily some people don't have to agree, but I think a lot of times too, people don't listen to understand, like people listen to respond and to say like, oh, just my opinion's validated. And I feel like just in general, I'm like with what you're saying with animals and just in life that, we can all have disagreements or agree, but it's like, also becoming knowledgeable. If you don't know something, it's like you should research, before saying it's just one way. There's never not just one way in life. Nothing's just black and white. Everything is always a gray area. So
100%.
I think that was, thank you so much for like shining that light on that because it is such a controversial thing. So
yeah, but
greatly appreciate that.
My pleasure. And everything is. Nothing is perfectly good or perfectly bad. Everything has good and bad components about it. There are things about zoos that I'm not thrilled about. That just it's the bad that comes with the good. But overall, the good outweighs the bad, in my opinion. And I think the opinion of any conservationist that really knows what's going on or people involved in that world. And so, yeah, like some stuff kind of sucks with zoos, but the big picture overall, we're seeing a lot more good than bad if we're doing it right. But then there's a lot of shitty zoos and not good places. They're not doing a damn thing for conservation. They're trying to make some money. They're not taking great care of animals. They're overbreeding animals and then sending off, tiger cub babies to other shitty zoos or sending them to Southeast Asia where they're getting, potentially killed and put on the black market for their teeth or their other body parts. And it's like, there's a very ugly, scary, not okay underbelly that comes along with that. And that's why I wish there was a different word for a good zoo and a bad zoo. There's just like, I hate categorizing them because one place called a zoo can be the shittiest thing for our wildlife, our animals, the individuals at that zoo, and our conservation, whereas another place can be doing so much more.
Yeah.
Yes, it's just I feel like that's just life in general, with every good there comes bad. And it's again, if you become knowledgeable about things, then you can see the bigger picture, and that's just with animals, that's in life, and that's just period. I feel like,
I agree.
The way of the world. So before we decide to do some quick rapid fires, you have your hands into so many things. You're a jack of all trades. Is there any tea that you could spill on some hobbies or some potential things you're working on for 2021?
2021, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be able to travel and do a little bit more work with animals and wildlife this year. I plan on getting to South Africa later in the spring. I'm trying to get this Bahamas trip going. We keep having to cancel because of weather, but I want to swim with tiger sharks again, as I mentioned in my last chapter of the book. But also this time of year, great hammerheads are going to be in the water too. And so I'd love to just see a big like 13, 14, 15 plus foot hammerhead shark and swim with them. I mean, I love that kind of stuff. I'm still trying to, I'm in talks with a couple different pathways towards getting another show going. I had so much fun with that with my Animal Planet show. I would love to do that again. And I think there's a lot of great platforms that we could pursue that kind of thing. I'm just otherwise around here. I'm going to keep hanging out in the shop and doing woodworking when I got time. I try to exercise and stuff when I can and keep doing what I'm doing, I guess.
Build his furniture business. He's got multiple things that's popping along the line.
Hey, this was the time. Like if anyone ever had something that they wanted to do and they didn't do it, it was just kind of like, well, then you're lazy, because we've had ample amount of time to now like put our hands into stuff that we were like, oh, we don't have time for. But things are slowly getting back to normal. So life is slowly coming back together where we can travel and have all that good jazz. Well, are we ready for some rapid fire?
Let's do some rapid fire, baby. I'm gonna let you start it, Ari. So hit it away.
Okay, so if your house was on fire and you can only go back and grab two things, What are the two things you're grabbing?
Oh man. Do I like? I mean, I would grab my
If
animal.
Beyonce, your animals are given.
Animals are a given. Okay, so
Two
two
things
things
I
beyond
would
my
say
animal.
that they're given.
Okay. Oh my gosh, I'm not rapid firing. I want to take everything. I don't know. I have a skull collection that I'm like I collect skulls around the world, and I would be very sad if those guys got fried up. So
That's
I'd probably grab my two favorite skulls. Oh, I can skulls is one.
okay.
I was like, I'd be doing this with those phones, no?
Skulls. Okay, and what's the other thing?
And then in the workshop, so I've got this little tool, and they're not. I'm not sponsored by them or anything, but it's called a domino, and it's like the most handy joinery tool when it comes to woodworking, and it's expensive and it's small, so I'd throw that in there too.
There you go.
Wait, what about the animals?
Oh, I thought that was a given.
No, I was like, of course.
But that's wait, are we giving some passies today? Are we doing a little pass action? Is that what
a little this and a little that?
You're gonna make me so choice my animals?
Okay, we'll do
like,
the pass. The animals are just a given. Okay. So
Don't tell Blue, but it would be these two.
Wait, what's the little nugget's name? What's the cat's name?
Billy.
Billy. Oh, okay. Oh, Billy and Henry.
Yeah, Willie and Henry.
Oh, Willie. Oh, okay.
That's so funny. All right, so if you had one superpower, what would it be?
I don't know. I mean, I can't obviously be super cool fly or something crazy, but it'd be really cool to know, like, when people were like telling the truth or something, you know, where you could kind of read their mind and just know if they're full of shit or not, and then call them out, you know, like, assuming people would trust that you actually know what you're talking about. But I feel like that would be really fun.
Kind of person.
Yeah, that's such a pessimistic sounding superpower, and that's what I would want to do. But like, I mean, the more you get into the worlds that you work in, the more bullshit you see, and there's a lot of it, even in the conservation world, unfortunately. And I mean, there's good people doing good things, and I'm very fond of them and happy for, you know, that they're helping our wildlife. But there's a lot of other people that they talk big.
That's true. True that. Okay. So the next question, name one fun fact about yourself.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like I'm so transparent. I don't have anything like new, I guess.
I think you showed us the fun facts in the beginning.
I guess we could say the fun fact that you built those chairs. If people missed it in the beginning, if people weren't listening in the beginning, that's so dope. Yes, exactly. That you're into like building things, the DIYs and tools and all that.
I am. I do like. I like to work with my hands a whole lot.
There we go.
All right. Last but not least, who was the last person that you texted? Come on, juice it up. Come on now.
Spill the tea now.
One of my vet school colleagues, he was showing me, he sent some short videos of this new Dodge Ram supercharged, gnarly 700 horsepower truck, and it just looked insane. I like cars on the side. That's another side.
Boys being boys.
Yeah, pretty much. Nothing that juicy, but a badass truck.
Hey, nothing wrong with that. I love cars, so, you know. For the person, there's people out there who are listening who are like, okay, I hear him. Well, we want to thank you so much for coming on and giving so much insight and spilling some tea. And for people who are living under a rock and don't know who you are, go ahead and plug your social media, where people can find your book, where people can go and look back and watch the show, and just to follow your journey. Go ahead and spill the tea.
Absolutely. So you guys can find anybody can find my work on Instagram. It's Dr. Evan Antin. So it's Dr. abbreviated doctor, and then my name, Evan Antin, EVANANTIN. And then on Facebook, it's facebook.com/evan.antin. And buying the book, there's a link in my bio on Instagram where you can buy it at Dr. Evan Antin on Instagram. And then it's available on Amazon. It's available on audiobooks, and I mean, it's in like Barnes and Noble. It's available in a lot of like big places. If you just Google up, you know, World Wild Vet, you'll see several options you can get it. And I read the audiobook too, so you'll hear it from yours truly, me telling some all of my crazy stories and whatnot.
Awesome. Where can everybody follow you at, Matt?
You can follow me, Matt Dillon, 1983, and Mama left the building, unfortunately. She's asleep, but you can follow her at It's Mama 2011.
You guys can follow me across the board at Ariane Andrew and the little sleeping nugget at Glitty Glit. And of course, you can follow Sippin' the Tea TV show at Sippin' the Tea TV show on Instagram and Sippin' the Tea TV 1 on Twitter. We will catch you guys same time, same place for another episode of Sippin' the Tea TV show.